1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, what did I get up to?
Welcome to a new episode of How Many, the only podcast on the internet that counts. We have a pretty full crew tonight. We've got Gary and Scott, Bob, Junior, I'm Jesse, and from up north, Kevin.
Good to be here, eh?
Oh, beauty, go.
We're going to talk first the Cowboys. And we're recording this on October 13th, the Thursday before the big Sunday night matchup between the Eagles and the Cowboys.
Hey, and before I go, one question. Do the Cowboys suck or what?
Oh, yeah! Nailed it!
And I have to say that I am very surprised at how well the team is playing. I had said they'd be 7-10 for the season if they win just another 3 games. So Gary, you must be feeling very happy,
Gary,
about and smug about how
what's wrong with the Cowboys
were doing.
What's wrong with them? Still, what was wrong with them before? It's the shaky offensive line, but it's better than we thought it was. I mean, Tyler Smith is legit better than any. Look, I am the blue sunglasses. I'm the blue sunglasses guy. I'm the blue Kool-Aid guy. I know that I am a homer, which I don't care. I'm fine with being a homer because there's a lot of haters out there. And like Zeke says,
I felt like I need to do what you did. When we did our kind of check-in on the Cowboys, you said I was wrong about Michael Parsons. And I was totally against the Smith guy. I was like, he's the most penalized, lineman. What are we doing? This is stupid. And he has turned out to be a solid and have a huge upside. And then Collins, who we let go, is doing horrible. So who knows? Jerry, as he turns 80, and his team might know what they're doing. But please,
I'll address that real quickly, but I trust Will McClay. And everybody loves to do this thing where if something brilliant happens, man, that Will McClay, he's awesome. And when something stupid happens, or when somebody thinks something stupid happens, man, that Jerry, or man, that Steven. I don't believe that those guys act in a vacuum. I just don't. So when we hear Jerry say something about the team or about an individual player, or Steven, when he says something about the team or the player, they're like parrots, man.
Yes.
They're sitting in the room with Will McClay and with the offensive and defensive coaches, and they hear them say things, and then they come back and they parrot it out.
Ball spin.
Exactly. So when I hear them say things and people get upset, you can't just, I'm going to blame everything bad on Jerry and Steven and everything good goes to Will McClay. The truth is they act as a group. And Jerry said this many times for 2 decades or plus, he's like a tiebreaker. He's got scouts, he's got a personnel director, he's got coaches, and they all have input. And when they can all agree on something, that's what happens. And when they don't agree on things and they're split, Jerry's a tiebreaker. And so when he listens to a brand new head coach that he doesn't have a relationship with, and Will McClay says, I want to do A, and the coach says, I want to do B, he's probably going to A because he has a relationship with Will McClay. But once the coach has been here for a few years and Jerry feels like he's been right about this or that or whatever, then that guy gets a little more weight to the decisions that get made. But they don't do things in a vacuum. And, the Tyler Smith thing, I wasn't big on it either, but I saw an upside there. But my biggest fear was, when's he going to be ready? Like he'd only played 3 years of football. When was he going to be ready? And it turns out he was ready in the preseason.
Poochie and I were talking, and I said, we were having this discussion 3 or 4 years ago, and I was talking about bad drafts. And you said, hold up, Jesse. Let's think for a minute. That's just a knee-jerk reaction. And we started going, and I said, when you think about it, and you can pick whatever span of years you want to stand, they've actually been consistent of pretty good, if not great, drafts.
And that's your crossover to Fix It Rich.
How about y'all fix this shit, Rich?
Because we have actually gone back and analyzed every draft back to 2015.
Yeah.
And we've talked about when the Cowboys picked, what other players were still on the board that were picked within 6 or 8 picks. So, like, those are the guys that were going to get picked in that range. Did they miss? Did they take somebody and then some all-pro guy went right after? The Cowboys are one of the best teams, one of the best drafting teams in the NFL.
And that's the nature of the business. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are very pleased with Tyler Smith. He said all the right things at the draft, and you can tell when a kid has got his head on straight. And from the get-go at the draft, the kids sounded and said all, and of course these kids all, like, no different than when they're in a personnel meeting. They have to know what to say, and they get programmed as well. But he said all the right things. I think the other thing that's been fantastic is not enough credit has gone to McCarthy. I'll admit, the Monday morning, I felt that the season was over. This was it. Rush played terrible in the preseason. Everything was, okay, so now let's start focusing on the 2023 draft. But that defense is Super Bowl caliber. I think Micah Parsons, I think the comparisons to LT can start. And at the same time, even the back end looks good. The safeties are good. And safety play has been one of our biggest Achilles heels. All of a sudden, Donovan Wilson looks like Roy Williams who can cover. And he can hit like Roy Williams. And we haven't seen a safety be able to do that around here in a while. But overall, I couldn't be more optimistic. Sure, Dak is coming back, but Cooper Rush has done exactly what he's supposed to do, which is not lose games. He's supposed to just come in there, execute the offense. He's done all of that. And I've been pretty impressed. I mean, the other night, maybe there wasn't enough offense, but there was more than enough defense. And you can ride a defense through any part of the season, and this team's only going to get better. And with Tyron coming back and Peters in place, now all of a sudden that offensive line come December could be one of the best in the league. So as a diehard Cowboys fan, I couldn't be happier right now.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys are saying. I think McCarthy, I was one of the first ones who was hoping he would be gone and wanting to bring Peyton in, but he gets a lot of credit from me because I think the locker room has held together, and that's a really tight locker room. Those you can tell, especially on the defensive side, and Quinn gets credit for that. Those guys do a lot of things together away from practice, away from the game. During the game, you can just tell it's a really tight unit on both sides of the ball. And Rush, the other night he didn't put up a lot of numbers, but they had some pretty big drops too. He's not playing poorly. He's not missing throws. He's not turning it over, so he gets a lot of credit. And like you said, Kevin, the offensive line, as it is outperforming expectations. Like
by a long way.
One guy I ought to mention is Biotish, because I thought he was pretty spare last year, and that guy has held up really well. There's been a couple of games where he's had some huge blocks, but broke open some big plays. Steele has maintained what he was doing last year. So the offensive line's doing well. Honestly, if there's an Achilles heel on this team, it's probably Dalton Schultz. Honestly, and they're paying that guy the franchise tag. They got Ferguson waiting in the wings. Other than that, they're looking really good. Mars had a really great retrenching. So I'm excited.
He was another one. I was like, God, I can't believe we're bringing this guy back, and he's done well. And I got to give a shout out to Gary. Gary said last year, you don't pay a tight end that kind of money.
Yeah.
You just don't. You can find him. I'm like, oh, but he's stacked safety. No, this isn't Jay Novacek.
No.
This is that will not pass this way again. Scott?
You were saying right there, to me, that whole idea with the tight end, I think that they're on the tight end like they are when Troy retired. They kept trying to bring in another Troy Aikman. Let's bring in another one. Let's bring in another, big blonde-haired guy that's going to do this. Well, and I think they're just going to keep trying to bring in another Novacek. Let's bring in another one,
or Jason Witten.
Or Jason Witten, exactly. But I'm surprised. I have been blown away. I will admit that there have been times when I'm watching the defense and I just kind of go, oh, here we go again. Because I get this incredible amount of pessimism whenever I see a Cowboy secondary guy get beat across the middle. And it just, but I always forget that other teams, that happens to them too, you know. Other teams can do it, why can't we? You know, other teams can run that screen pass, why can't we? You know. But I've been totally amazed at what's happened and pleased, and you know, I've been jumping up and down in my living room, and it's cool. I love watching that pass rush.
Yeah.
My God.
It just is. Gary?
I was just going to add one something real quick to the tight end thing
Yeah.
that you guys are talking about. Look, I love Ferguson. 4th round draft pick, he's been fantastic. Do not be surprised if Peyton Hendershot ends up being the starter and Ferguson ends up being the 2.
Okay.
Because Hendershot may be one of the most athletic tight ends in the league already. And I really didn't think he could block, but the more I watch the Brian Baldinger, the Baldy's breakdowns of the Cowboys running plays, you will continue to see that guy show up over and over and over. And he's supposed to be the receiving tight end, which he is. But like specifically on Zeke's longer run the other day, that one to the left side, if you watch Baldy's breakdown of that play, he actually blocked down to help block Aaron Donald. Once Aaron Donald had been pushed inside and was controlled, he cut back and he blocked Bobby Wagner. And Zeke went right behind him.
Right.
But Bobby Wagner, this kid was an undrafted free agent. He's a rookie.
And
Don't be
he's taking on
surprised.
he's taking on a 10-time All-Pro.
The Aaron Donald thing, that's another thing, is that he was killing Tyler Smith in the first half, and the second half, nothing.
That was it.
Yeah, so you got to give that guy credit, because he didn't let it ruin his game, didn't let it ruin his outlook.
So, Junior, you've been busy on the board doing sound levels on our professional recording. Turn your mic on and visit a little
Basically
bit.
just engineering the entire show.
Yes.
They're already halfway to what I predicted they were going to be at the end of the year. I think I predicted maybe 7-8 wins, and they're just about halfway there with plenty of season left to go. So obviously I'm pretty shocked. And that was even before the Dak injury. So obviously with Cooper Rush doing what he's doing, it's a very, very pleasant surprise. As people know, I'm usually the most pessimistic of the group, me and maybe Bob. So the fact that they are doing so much better than we expected, it's always nice to be going in with a down attitude and be pleasantly surprised and be over-optimistic and then be let down completely. So taking the route that we did, I think we are getting the most enjoyment out of being wrong about the situation.
Pessimism is easy.
It is.
But it is also
exactly
the most
correct.
But the most fulfilling. I think.
It is the easiest way. But in response to that, though, I think probably the best feeling is at the beginning of the season to feel like we are going to roll and we are going to dominate, and then it happens.
And then you do.
Right, exactly. To me, that's
Then
the
you can tell everybody
thing.
I told you so, which is its own gratification.
I feel like you're wasting something when you think, oh man, I'm just waiting for it to end. I'm waiting for it to fail, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
So
how much did I miss?
Our mutual friend Ken Schaefer used to always say, if you're an optimist and things go well, you're okay, and if it goes poorly, you're disappointed. And he said, if you're a pessimist and things go bad, you go, okay, good, that's what I expected. And then if they go good, you're pleasantly surprised. So he believes a pessimist is the best.
Another reason to be optimistic at this point is after Sunday, they've gone through the hard part of their schedule.
Exactly.
The rest of the season, if you look at, there's 12 games left. Bare minimum 8 of those are imminently winnable.
Okay, let's
8
not
at
academy
least.
run.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just
Just a few more things I want to hit on before we move on. I am shocked at how well the special teams is playing right now. We've already had a block punt, block kick. Maher has been great. Mm-hmm. Our kick coverage has been good. And I haven't seen a lot of just ridiculous trying to return from 10 yards in the end zone situations.
After the first game.
After the first game, yes. That has been a big surprise. And at the beginning of the year, I really thought Randy Gregory departing was going to be a massive blow to the front four, and it obviously has not been. Armstrong has
Randy
been
Gregory is that guy that went on IR the other day for Denver.
Yes.
He's hurt, his knees hurt.
Which is par for the course for him. But yeah, Armstrong has been fantastic. Even Fowler has been good in spot duty as a pass rusher.
Sam Williams.
Yes, Sam Williams.
Sam Williams has been good.
These guys are all getting hits.
Even Tristan Hill makes plays on the run game every now and then.
Not every now and then. That dude is a legit member of that rotation.
Yeah, front four and front
Anthony
front
Barr.
seven.
Adigizua is a presence just about every game.
Yep.
Yeah, it is a
How'd you say that?
Adigizua. I sound like Porky Pig.
That's all, folks.
It's a very pleasant surprise, and we've reached a point where I'm not going to doubt that they could win Sunday night against the Eagles. I think it'll be a tough game, but I don't think it's impossible. And part of the problem is because of the last 20 plus years, it is easy for us to get in that, well, big deal, but what are they going to do once they hit the playoffs? And not enjoying that journey of, like last season, we got 12 wins. And yes, it's disappointing how it ended. Little side note, what I've been doing for fun on Take a Drink, my Springsteen podcast, a lot of people are, Eagle fans and Giants fans and others. I'll take a bet, and for $10 the Cowboys lose, I'll give $10 to the charity Bruce Funds that finds tickets for deserving Springsteen fans. And so I've had a couple people that were either Eagle fans or Giants fans or Commanders.
So in a way, you're kind of paying yourself because you're hoping you're going to be part of the charity.
No. 3 tickets, hoping for a 4th. So changing the subject, if you are not in a DFW area, this may have no interest to you, as if any of this ever interests you. But we had a big radio shakeup. Mike Rhyner, godfather of the ticket, someone that we all like and enjoy on the radio, has decided to come out of retirement and is starting one of the key players with a new talk station here in DFW. And blank hit the fan, pardon the pun, because he was so instrumental in doing the sports station, The Ticket, which is where a lot of us have our fan base, and, we came with friendship because Scott and Kevin because of The Ticket. And, all of a sudden he is going to a rival station, and it's feeling a little weird. So, Junior, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was as shocked as anybody when I saw the news. Obviously, I love Mike. He's been a great friend to a lot of P1s and to me. So it's hard for me to get mad at him for making this decision. I can understand why other people could potentially be upset because, he means so much to the ticket. And even after his retirement, he spent so much time going back and visiting, being on the air, going to Ticket Stock, being part of the Time Waster concerts. As that was happening, I guess in his mind, he was contemplating this decision to come back and create a brand new station and rival the ticket and even go head to head against some of their most popular shows. So I can understand the frustration that some P1s may have with that situation. But I mean, Mike has earned the right to do this. I mean, he has nothing more he owes the ticket. He's given them his entire life. And for him to want to try something different, I don't think any of us should hold anything against him for that. Now, as far as the shows themselves, they're pretty early on in their development. I have sampled several of the freak shows, and I was surprised by the content and by the quality of some of them, considering that they're just starting out. And I'm willing to give them some more tries, but obviously it's hard to turn your back on the Musers, hard to turn your back on Gordon. To some extent, for me, it's hard to turn my back on the Hardline because, Davey is now on it, and I'm a big fan of Davey. We go back to the rant days. I've always had a good relationship with Corby. And obviously Sturm, from a sports standpoint and a technical standpoint when it comes to his sports opinions, he's a very, very knowledgeable person. So I'm always interested to hear what he has to say, especially after Cowboy games. But there's enough room and there's enough of an audience in Dallas for 2 stations like this to exist. And I don't hold any ill will towards anybody in this situation.
Yeah, I thought Mike was interesting when he mentioned, I've worked for a lot of different radio stations. I haven't just worked for the ticket. And so 97.1 The Freak is just another section. Sideshow Bob, Day 1 P1, what are your thoughts? You know,
I'm
not actually
comes
no, I'm
from-
not day one.
He is not actually a day one
I'm
P1.
year two,
okay.
but
Year two?
yes, but I didn't even know it existed. I would have been listening from then. Yeah, I am like Junior said. There would be no ticket without Ryan's. He basically started the station, so nobody has any claim over him being able to do whatever he wants. Otherwise, I mean, it's like if he started, the Cowboys and went somewhere else. Well, he was the guy that founded that. So I'm listening to his show periodically. He's my leader. I love him. But I still listen to the ticket, a lot of the other shows, especially the Musers. The other stuff that's on the Freak, I'm not as interested in. The morning show especially, I don't really know very many of those individuals. The Ryan thing, it's good to hear him and Soroy and Groobs. So glad they're back. And I listen on the way home a lot of times, so I'm giving it a shot.
I sampled too. Scott, how about you?
I've only sampled the afternoon show, and I was giddy when Mike came back because all I could ever think of was the stories. Mike's telling stories, and I want to hear those stories. I totally agree with that. Mike owes them nothing. Yeah. He's done everything for them as far as I'm concerned. They owe everything to him if you're going to put it into those words. And as far as sour grapes from the ticket guys, to me it's just a case of when you hear somebody complaining about another team running it up, it's like, well, get better. If the ticket is worried, get better. We know that there's been problems. We know that, there's been a number of people that have left, and now we're hearing that they're leaving and coming over to the Freak as we see. And that's just the way it is.
Do you think some of the things they've done over the past couple of weeks are in direct response,
yes.
like the show swap and Gordo on all of these shows?
That's not coincidence.
It is so apparent that they're in, panic mode of, oh my gosh. But to me, that is, what are we going to do? What are we going to do?
It's a knee-jerk reaction, for sure.
Exactly. It reminds me so much of back when I was with the record business, when suddenly, oh, shoot, kids can download music off the internet? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? You should have thought about that 10 years ago when this was coming up, and you guys kept saying, it's not going to bother us.
Welcome to Blockbuster.
Yeah, it's like Blockbuster. Yeah. I mean,
welcome to Blockbuster.
At one point, they could have bought Netflix very inexpensively.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it just wasn't a thought. Yeah, I tend to stay very loyal to the Musers. Unless they're talking college football, that's when I don't care. But normally I do that. In the afternoon, I tend to more. I like Julie Dobbs, but I get to hear her on her mom podcast. I think it's going to be interesting. And Rhyner is the one who said, I built in a bunker mentality in the ticket. From the very beginning, I preached to all the guys, it's us against them, it's us against them, it's us against them. We got to get together. He says, and now then, I'm outside of that, and I have no doubt that bunker mentality is I created. So, of course, they're going to react that way.
Right.
Gary?
What I'm going to say may sound like some hard truths, but it's just my opinion.
Please.
The ticket has completely lost its fastball. Anybody that was listening to this thing back in the 90s or even in the aughts, everybody remembers how much fun it used to be. And now, when they go out on location and they send Gordo out with the mic, you get little glimpses of it. They still occasionally do it, but if it's not that, it's gotten serious. It's like I don't want to be that guy, but you are here to amuse me. And if all I do is get depressed when I listen to your station, I'm going to change the station. And until recently, I didn't have anywhere else to go because the fan sucks. So I don't listen to the fan, even though I wanted to leave the ticket and find something that amuses me. The world is a very depressing place, much worse over the last decade or so than, maybe before that. But it's just getting darker and darker, all the crazy stuff that's gone on. And sometimes I want to lighten up.
Yeah.
And they don't lighten up anymore. It's just as dark on there as it is outside. And I tuned in to be entertained, and they don't do that. Now, Gordon is still the king. That guy's always funny. But he's not one of the, he's not the main guy on the Musers. And so I get a lot of Craig and a lot of George, and Craig and George aren't what they used to be to me. I love Gordon. So if I'm listening to The Freak in the morning, and because I love Julie, I was so mad when she left, and I love Soroy, but he's in the afternoon. And I've been following Kavanaugh on YouTube for a long time because he does the cowboy stuff. He's kind of like Bob without all the long-winded stuff. he knows a lot about sports. So from a sports perspective, he's awesome. And then I really, really like Julie. So the two of them together are pretty great. So I'll listen to them, and then at 8:40 I go over and I listen to Gordo's bit. And then I might leave again as soon as something happens, and I'm like, oh God, here we go again. I go right back over to 97. And then in the afternoon, man, I like Bob, but I don't think Bob and Corby are a good mix. I think losing Danny was massive. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I know that Junior likes the replacement. He likes Davey, but losing Danny was big. And now, isn't Danny headed to the Freak?
Yes.
That's the rumor.
That's which is weird because Rhyner specifically said no when they asked him on that Earburner podcast a couple weeks ago.
I mean,
it was very...
Things change.
You know, this non-compete thing is weird, right?
Yes.
It's like, oh, you've been talking, you're violating your non-compete, so that could be the reason.
Sure,
why.
that makes sense.
I think 100% Danny's going to come over. I mean, because I think he really enjoyed his time at the Ticket. I think he liked his place at the Ticket. I think he and Mike got along great. And why wouldn't he? I mean, I think he would only have success there.
Yeah, and so this is what it boils down to me. When we used to have Julie and Soroy on with Donnie and Norm, anytime Norm was out, that was my favorite show on the Ticket. They had so much fun. They laughed. Everything was funny. It was great. The three of them together was awesome. But then Norm would come back from whatever he was gone to Africa or whatever, and he would come back and it would go back to Norm's show, which is fine. I don't dislike Norm. I just happen to like Soroy and Donnie together with Julie way more. And so this is when you get Soroy saying, well, guys like Norm, if they don't step aside, and then you get Gordon saying, nobody has to step aside. You can't tell somebody they have to retire. This is exactly where I came down in this argument. It's not up to Norm. Cumulus could have gone to him and said, I have to keep this fresh. We love you, Norm. We'll have you back for the draft.
Berman.
We'll have you back. We'll have you back for the Normathon. We're not going to put you out to pasture for good, but I got to keep these things fresh. I got to shake this up a little bit. And if they did those kinds of things, and then every once in a while maybe nudge a couple of the guys and go, hey, funny?
Yeah.
Right.
Make the people laugh, have a good time. You work at a radio station. You make a lot of money to sit around and just BS with your buddies. We're sitting here doing it. We paid to come here.
Yeah.
I paid to drive on the tollway and come hang out with you dudes. They get paid a lot of money to do this.
Yeah. I mean,
so,
Kevin paid big bucks.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
So to me, it's just like, you had a chance to do it. This is on Cumulus. It's not on Corby.
Right.
It's not on the hosts. It's not on Norm. It's not on Bob. It's on Cumulus. They did this. They are the ones that underpaid the technical help, and so they're ready to all walk. And they're the ones that created this sort of us against them, where some of the hosts that were making a little bit of money, like Soroy, he's certainly not making, wasn't making what the hosts were making, but he was making more than the board ops were. And he's like, well, I feel like I'm not even getting paid enough, and I know they're not getting paid even nearly enough.
Yeah.
So they're killing themselves. And so, they did it to themselves. And so I have no reservations whatsoever. I still belong to the Ticket rooms. I've made a lot of friends in there. I'll still go there and talk to everybody and everything else. But there's going to be times when somebody posted the thing yesterday, like, what was Corby talking about? I was like, I don't know, because I missed it.
Yeah.
And, the Ticket, they don't care. But I work from home. At about 7:30 in the morning, I turn on the Ticket. And until about 5:30 in the evening when I get off work, and the only time it turns off is if I'm in a meeting. The rest of the time it's on. They had me for 10 plus hours a day, and they could have had that, but they mismanaged it. So
I think the one thing that I saw at the last Ticket stock in Mike was a guy who still had the fire in his belly.
Right.
I don't think that ever left him. I think he needed that little break. And then because you don't start something like the ticket and lose that pilot light doesn't go out. And I think he saw an opportunity. He was probably presented with an opportunity.
I think that's what it was. Ben and Skin kind of started it.
But I also think, going back to Junior's original point about the fact that, no, of course he doesn't. And you know what? The bottom line is business. And hey, he's got an opportunity. The door is open for a lot of talented people. Groobs, Julie. Julie, I think, was a massive loss to the ticket in a lot of cases because, as Gary said, that midday show, Boom in the House, when it was Soroy, Donovan, and Julie, was a lot of fun. But as far as any backlash, no, I don't think there deserves to be any because, again, it's a business. I'm sure that, deep down the friendships are still there. I don't think anyone needs to be wounded by anything. I mean, they're all adults. But, when you think about, and I've read the book and all of that stuff, and I know a few of the stories, but, you just don't lose that fire. And I think that he had it. And when this came up, I think he saw another opportunity to keep going. And it's in his blood. You don't, no matter how old the lion is, they don't like to be away from the pack. Yeah. Or away from the pride, pardon me. Yeah. But you know what I mean? So I think he genuinely had the fire. And now he's just out there doing it. And I think competition is good for everybody. Gary made some very valid points about, hey, losing the fastball. And if that causes things to turn around, who knows? But right now, it's fascinating. Like for someone who worked in that business, I don't think the news surprised me. Really, it was kind of like, oh, okay, but to me it was more like, okay, now we got something going on here.
And I have no inside knowledge, and this is probably just optimism on my part, but you would hope that Cumulus sits there and goes, maybe we better give a little extra money to some of these people that are on the back bench, the support people and everything. Maybe because it would just be nice. And you're right. Rising tide raises all boats. So if it makes them better, that's good. And you're absolutely. I knew when I saw that the Freak was going live, and I'm like, why are all three of the musers on the afternoon show for multiple segments?
Right. Yes.
And I'm like, okay. Something's going on.
The other thing I wonder if this will impact is, and Gary kind of alluded to this earlier about how they've kind of changed over the past few years. And one of the things I've noticed is, bit-wise, they've eliminated or really watered down some of the edgier content they've had. Yes. Like, you never hear Chris McKinley anymore. Carlton Maxwell's been neutered. You don't hear Ed Carter.
Michelle Wee.
Yeah, Michelle. So exactly. It was her birthday the other day. I was thinking, they're going to bring her on. No. So I'm wondering if they'll realize, well, maybe we better bring back some of what people.
Get the edge back.
Yeah, because I think they overcorrected and thought, we better not offend anybody, and then it's like, no, that was what was people love that stuff.
And now, in terms of listening, musers, that's a tough give up. It's going to be. I don't think I can ever turn my back on the musers. Once we start moving around to middays and the afternoons, of course, I'm going to take. To me, it's a natural thing because there are some familiar voices there, obviously. But I'm going to give it another, I listened to the first week, but it was all, hey, isn't this new? Isn't this exciting? But to me, it's a month in or 6 weeks in. And then you start listening to see what are they crafting, what are they putting together.
Right. I'll start listening, I think, to a certain level once they've kind of blown the pipes out.
Right.
And said, okay,
settled in.
Now we're here and let's see what it is, because I was kind of getting tired of the whole, okay, well, who are you? And what, and I get it, but it was a case but I want to hear something different, To think that there's should be an issue, like we were saying, that there should be no issues. It's just a case of this is another station and they're doing their thing. Yeah. I think Rhyner still has a ton to offer. If anybody's got 3 or 4 books in him, it's him. And I wish he would just start writing.
I loved his Star Companion, the podcast. I loved it. And I loved the long format where he could really talk to people, like when he had Hansen on and when he had Galloway on and he had, people. It was really good. So, same thing. I love the Mongame. I love,
I'm kind of surprised Emily isn't involved, I guess, with the Rangers, but I would think she would be involved in this.
Hey, Jason Isbell left the Drive-By Truckers. Drive-By Truckers are doing fine. Jason Isbell's doing fine.
Yeah.
So these things happen. So
Triumph broke up. Rick Emmett went solo. Look at how that went.
yeah.
Poor Mike Levine. What's he doing these days?
All right. So thank you, listeners. We appreciate it. We don't need to tell everyone to find us. They know.
Hold on. Okay. At How Many Podcasts on Twitter. Bob is Lukewarm Tall Boy on Twitter. Scott is Scott_Matula on Twitter. Gary is Travel_Cowboy on Twitter. Jesse is at Setlusting Bruce on Twitter. And
yes.
I don't know what Kevin's is. Kevin.
At KD Triple.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Dallas, Dallas.